Hello and welcome to the L15 weekly podcast, giving you the latest news, views and opinions from the football world. So on this week's episode, we're going to be talking about the story of Sheffield United's rise to the top. We have a special guest coming in the shape of Blades Culture towards the end of the episode, where we get his take on Sheffield United's rise to the brink of European football. But first, we gotta paint a picture, and we got to tell the story of Sheffield United's rise to almost European football. So if you enjoyed this, make sure you smash a like. Sheffield fans, let me know your thoughts on your rise to the top. You know, what a journey it's been. You know, let me know on your feelings towards how what a great job Chris Wilder's done turning your club around. And if you guys want to go and follow me at L15weekly on Twitter and Instagram, you know, we do both. You guys can do that, and you can go and check out all the wonderful things that I post on there. So, let's get straight into telling you the story of Sheffield United's rise to the top. Sheffield United Football Club was founded on the 22nd of March 1889, and it was nicknamed the Blade due to Sheffield's history of steel production. They have played every single one of their home games at Bramwell Lane since their formation. They won the original Football League in 1898 and the FA Cup in 1899, 1902, 1915 and 1925. Since the club's formation, they have played in all four tiers of the Football League, and they are also one of only four clubs to have finished as champions in each of the top four tiers. But to be able to tell you the full story of how Sheffield United came to be the European candidates that they are today, we must fast forward to the 3rd of September 2013. On this day in Sheffield's history, it was confirmed that Saudi Prince Abdullah bin Mossayed bin Abdulaziz Al Saud of the Royal House of Saud had bought a 50% stake in United's parent company for the fee of only £1. Although that fee was incredibly small, it came with a promise of returning Sheffield United back to the top flight as soon as possible. In the Saudi Prince's first full season of part ownership with Kevin McCabe, Sheffield sat in the third level of English football. Managed by Nigel Clough, the Blades made some shrewd transfers, as well as letting go of some prospects that could have turned out as star players for the club. The only notable transfer out of the Steel City was academy product Harry Maguire, who played a total of 134 games for the Blades, scoring 9 goals. He left for £2.5 million for Hull City, and today is the most expensive centre-back on the planet, and also Manchester United captain. Although Maguire left, the club did find a bit of a replacement centre-back in the shape of a man named Chris Basham on a free transfer from Blackpool, and has now made 238 appearances to date of Sheffield United, and is their longest serving player at the moment. The season was tarred with inconsistency, finishing 5th but not winning any of their last 5 league games to help propel them towards automatic promotion, and being knocked out of the playoff semi-finals by Swindon Town on aggregate. Although the season was deemed a failure due to the playoff disappointment, this League Cup did bring joy to many of the Blades fans. United made their way to the semi-finals, making their name as giant killers by knocking out Mansfield, West Ham, Leyton Orient, MK Dons and Southampton, until finally being beaten on aggregate by Tottenham Hotspur in the semi-finals. The 2015-16 season was the Sheffield's 127th season of their history, and their 5th consecutive season in League One. Following another failed playoffs campaign after the defeat to Swindon, manager Nigel Clough was sacked, with the board stating that a change in direction was needed at the club. On June the 2nd, Nigel Adkins was appointed as the new manager. The notable incoming of the season was the return of academy product Billy Sharp, who became a club legend in later years, and also became their top scorer with 20 goals in all competitions in the 15-16 season. Tying youngster Che Adams down into a new contract proved to be a step up in the right direction, and sending future Premier League regulars Dominic Calvert-Lewin and David Brooks on loan to Northampton Town, respectively, giving them the chance to develop and sort of flourish as players. Although some steps in the right direction were being taken, the season ended up an overall disaster, finishing 11th with 66 points and a +5 goal difference, also being knocked out in the 3rd round of the FA Cup and the 2nd round of the League Cup. As Sheffield United sleepwalked their way into the 6th consecutive season in League One, the 2016-17 season brought boyhood blade Chris Wilder's first season in charge. After formerly managing Alfreton Town, Halifax Town, Oxford United and Northampton Town, Chris Wilder was ready for the challenge of managing his boyhood club, of whom he made 105 appearances for in 2 separate spells. Nobody had really heard of Chris Wilder, but they were willing to give him a chance due to his passion for the club. But the former right-back came in and made wholesale changes, losing academy products to Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Aaron Ramsdale to Everton and Bournemouth respectively seemed like a big couple of losses, and it also letting go of Che Adams to Birmingham City for an undisclosed fee seemed like a risky move. Also that summer, bringing in John Fleck on a free transfer from Coventry seemed to be a great bit of business, and he was hotly tipped to be one of a brilliant future player, which of course he did turn out to be. Jack O'Connor was also a good transfer bought in from Brentford for an undisclosed fee. He was to become a pivotal instalment in the back line. Leon Clark was acquired from Bury for an undisclosed fee to provide a strike force with Billy Sharp, which in the end turned out to be formidable. The season proved to be an overall success as Wilder threw chances of cup wins out the window, going out of the FA Cup in the second round, EFL Cup in the first round and the EFL Trophy in the first round. Wilder ultimately brought them success, finishing first in League One and gaining promotion to the second tier of English football. The Blades finished with 100 points, leaving them 14 points clear of second place Bolton. Billy Sharp finished the season as top scorer with 30 goals scored. The 17-18 season came with a return to the second tier of English football. That summer, in came John Lundstrom from Oxford, George Baldock from MK Dons, Ender Stevens from Portsmouth and Richard Stearman from Fulham. Also bringing in key loan signings of Jamal Blackman from Chelsea, Cameron Carter-Vickers from Tottenham, James Wilson from Manchester United, and new contracts for Chris Basham, Freeman, Sharp, Fleck and Jack O'Connell. Well, they made it to the 5th round of the FA Cup. They were beaten by Leicester City eventually, and they also went out of the League Cup, again to Leicester City, but this time in the second round. The season went okay, with the Blades finishing 10th in the Championship, and Chris Wilder really felt they were going in the right direction. And then came one of the biggest seasons in Sheffield United history. The Blades geared up for the 18-19 season by bringing John Egan from Brentford to complete the back three system. David McGoldrick from Ipswich Town on a free. They also said goodbye to academy product David Brooks, who joined Bournemouth for a larger fee. Important loan signings also came in, with Dean Henderson on loan from Manchester United, Ben Woodburn from Liverpool, Kieran Dowell from Everton and Oliver Norwood from Brighton, which was made permanent in the January of that season. Sheffield's season started badly with 2 losses against Swansea and Middlesbrough, Swansea 2-1 and Middlesbrough 3-0. Then came 4 wins on the trot, including wins versus fellow promotion winners Norwich and Aston Villa. A stop-start period of form brought doubts down on the Sheffield United side, but then an unbeaten run, which stretched from the 26th of January to the 30th of March, meant they made every chance of going up this season. Sheffield United won promotion back to the top flight of English football with a win against Ipswich as rivals Leeds drew against Villa. They'd finally done it, fulfilling the promise of the Saudi owners when they took over. But it was all well and good them getting promoted, but could they hold their own in the top flight of English football? Could they stay up? A fair bit of money was spent in the summer before their return for a club that's not known for spending all their money. Callum Robinson from Preston, Lys Musset from Bournemouth for £10 million, Ollie McBurney being the record signing at the time for £20 million. Having Dean Henderson on loan for another season has proved to really be the difference so far. Sheffield's 3 at the back rotational system proved a real hit in the Premier League, with big wins against Arsenal and Everton and all the other relegation candidates. In January, Sheffield also broke their record transfer, purchasing Sander Berg from Ghent for £22 million, breaking the record earlier set by Ollie McBurney's transfer. And now we must fast forward to present day, and Sheffield United sit 7th and in the European spot, with the task of Euro football in the hands of authorities. So if the season is to continue, then maybe they might be able to go up. If it's completely null and void, then Sheffield may have to start all over again, and God knows if they'll get that sort of balance right that next season, whether they'll be able to keep going up to European football, or whether they'll end up, they might even go down. You just don't know that sort of thing with football, how this could affect how players play and how teams are managed and things like that. On this week's episode of L15 Weekly, we are going to be talking all things Sheffield United. So I'm joined by Blades Culture. How are you, mate?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. So what we've got for you is 5 questions about Sheffield United's time since League One. So we'll start with the first one. When did you begin supporting Sheffield United?
Around 8 years ago, and I can remember the first match I actually ever went to, and it was a 5-3 win against Bournemouth, and that was back in League One.
Oh.
Which shows how much both clubs have come, because we're now both Premier League clubs. And we came back from behind, I think, to win 5-3.
And when you were in League One, what was it like? How did you cope with that sort of tricky time? Because obviously you've been in all 4 tiers of English football. You've also won all 4 tiers of English football. What was it like when you were in League One?
Well, there was a mix of emotions after Nigel Adkins came in 2015. After being in League One 5 years already, the fans were fed up that a club as big as Sheffield United were stuck in the mid-table of League One. Because he was sacked in the following May after finishing the lowest league position since 1983, which was 11th, which is horrible for a club like us because we're a massive club. And Chris Wilder came onto the scene with hardly any experience, with no one knowing him other than being a Sheffield United fan and securing promotion with Northampton, which was spectacular for him. But it was a really tough time for all us fans, as we expected more out of Adkins because he was a world-class manager, but we really didn't get what we wanted off him.
And you say Chris Wilder, nobody really knew him when he came into the club. How much has he benefited Sheffield United since coming in?
Honestly, Chris Wilder, it's statue time for that man outside Bramall Lane. What a resurrection the club has had under him. Because we all appreciate him so much for his work. The rise from League One to the brink of European football, it's just spectacular.
And, you say you've supported Sheffield United for about 8 years now. What's been your best memory over the past 4 years, the Wilder era?
Not just mine as a Blade, but every Blade all over the past 4 years has got to be the promotions from League One to Premier League in the space of 2 seasons. It's just amazing how it all happened and how fast the fans started to back the players and the coaching staff. It was the first real signs that we were once again getting back to where we should have been.
And, lots of players performing well and under Chris Wilder. Who would you say has been your favourite player over the past 4 years?
Well, it's been really hard to pick, so I've gone with 2 players, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's all right.
I've gone with, they've both been here since the start of Wilder's reign, and it's Billy Sharp and John Fleck. When you think of important players to Sheffield United glory run sort of thing, who do you think of? Mr. Sheffield United, the captain, Billy Sharp.
Billy Sharp.
What hasn't he done for the club? He's one of the greatest to ever wear the shirt, and he's up there with Tony Curry and Brian Deane. And then John Fleck, the maestro of the team, the engine of the midfield. If he doesn't play well, neither does the team, because he's so important for us. He's the joint top goal scorer along with Lees, and it's hard to pick between them two. Or even the team I've highlighted, because honestly, the whole team is so important. They all deserve all the praise they get from the press and everything, because we were meant to be down by Christmas, and the fact that we are now on the brink of European football, it's amazing for us fans, honestly.
Yeah, it's been the classic fairy tale rise for you guys. Well, Blades Culture, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure having you.
It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and you can check out Blades Culture's Instagram page. The links will be in the description. So if you've enjoyed this episode of the L15 Weekly podcast, then make sure you go and drop a like, you subscribe, you turn your notifications on if you want more podcasts every single week. You should also, if you're a Sheffield United fan or a general football fan who follows Sheffield United's journey, make sure you let me know how that felt for you. Also, a big thank you to Blades Culture for coming on this week's episode. It was a pleasure having him, and you can go and check out his Instagram page with the link in the description. It's some great Sheffield United content on there for you guys to go and have a look at. Also, we must all thank our heroes of the week, and that is to everybody at the NHS. They are our heroes of the week for this week and for most other weeks until football returns and we actually put some footballers in there. But NHS Heroes of the Week this week. Thank you to all emergency workers and people risking their lives to save ours. Thank you very much, NHS. So once again, stay safe, make sure you're keeping indoors, make sure you are staying, inside, you are making sure that you are following all government guidelines and making sure that you are working from home if you can. Make sure you're only going out for one piece of exercise. And only for essential supplies or medical purposes. So thank you very much for listening to this episode of the L15 Weekly podcast, the story of Sheffield United. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at L15weekly or Instagram at L15weekly, both of those available for you to check out some more stats and facts. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.